The alarm rang through the Nexus Prime station at exactly 3 in the morning. Galactic Standard Time. Counselor Vrex stumbled from his sleep pod, his 6 legs tangling together in his rush. Something was wrong. The communication array showed nothing but silence from the human sectors. He checked again, his clawed hands shaking as they moved across the holographic display. 22 star systems, 40 billion humans. All their signals had stopped at the same moment, 12 hours ago. No distress calls, no emergency beacons. Just silence. Vrex called an emergency council meeting. Within an hour, all 12 elder species gathered in the great chamber. The room was circular, with seats arranged in a spiral pattern that had stood for 40,000 years. Today, one seat remained empty, the human seat. Ambassador Hana should have been there. She always arrived early, carrying her data pad and a cup of that bitter drink humans loved. Coffee, they called it. Her seat looked strange without her. "Explain this," demanded Counselor Thress, her crystalline body chiming with agitation. "Where are the humans?" Vrex displayed the data for everyone to see. The silence was absolute. No ships moved in human space. No colonies responded to hails. The automated defense stations stood idle. It was as if someone had simply turned off every human in the galaxy. "Good riddance," muttered Counselor Breen from the back. Several others nodded in agreement. Vrex felt a chill run through his spine. He had lived for 300 years and served on the council for half of that. He had watched humanity join the galactic community only 2 centuries ago. Young, aggressive, always pushing boundaries. But something about this felt deeply wrong. "We should investigate," Vrex said quietly. "Why?" Breen stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. "The humans were becoming a problem, always expanding. Always taking risks, always questioning our decisions. Perhaps they finally left to find their own path. Or perhaps they destroyed themselves," suggested Counselor Mira, her tentacles writhing thoughtfully. "They were always so reckless with technology." The council erupted in discussion. Some celebrated, others worried. None seemed to grasp what Vrex was beginning to understand. He pulled up old files, searching through records that most had forgotten. 3 months ago, a human scientist named Una had requested an emergency audience with the council. They had granted her 10 minutes, annoyed at the interruption to their schedule. Vrex found the recording and played it. Una's face appeared in the hologram. She looked tired, her dark eyes showing fear. "Counselors, we've detected something beyond the galactic rim, a signal. It's massive and it's coming closer. My team has been studying it for 6 months. We need to prepare defenses. We need to—" The recording showed Counselor Thress cutting her off. "Young human, we have monitoring systems that have watched the galaxy for thousands of years before your species learned to make fire. If there was a threat, we would know. Do not waste our time with false alarms." Una had tried to argue, but they dismissed her. Vrex remembered now. He had voted with the others to ignore her warning. Humans always saw threats everywhere. It was their nature. Now Vrex wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. He spent the next 3 days reviewing files. What he found made his blood run cold. For 200 years, humanity had been doing jobs that no one else wanted. Dangerous jobs. Impossible jobs. Captain Hyun and his fleet patrolled the Malvorian Reach, keeping pirates away from trade routes. Without them, merchants would lose billions. Commander Day led teams into unstable star systems to rescue ships that got into trouble. 37 species owed their lives to his crews. Engineer Ari maintained the ancient defense networks in the outer sectors. Technology so old that no one else understood it anymore. She had trained no replacements from other species. The list went on and on. 147 critical tasks that humans performed across the galaxy. Tasks that other species considered too dangerous, too difficult, or beneath their dignity. The Council had voted 6 months ago to restrict human expansion. Too aggressive, they said. Too unpredictable. Humanity needed to slow down, to learn patience, to stop taking so many risks. The humans had accepted the decision with quiet grace. Ambassador Hana had simply nodded and said, "We understand, counselors. We will respect your wishes." There had been no anger, no protests, just calm acceptance. Now they were gone. On the 5th day after the disappearance, the first disaster struck. A distress call came from the trade station Helios 7. Malvorian pirates had attacked. 3 freighters destroyed. Hundreds dead. "Where is Captain Hyun?" the station master screamed over the comm. "Where are the human patrols?" There was no answer to give. The next day, another call. A research vessel had entered an unstable system and lost power. They were drifting toward a black hole. Commander Day's rescue teams always handled such emergencies. But there was no Commander Day. The ship and its crew of 47 scientists were lost. By the end of the first week, 12 emergencies had occurred, emergencies that humans would have solved. The Council scrambled to respond, but they were too slow, too unprepared. Other species didn't have the training. They didn't have the ships. They didn't have the stubborn human refusal to accept failure. Vrex watched the disaster reports pile up and felt shame burn in his chest. The humans hadn't been aggressive. They had been protective. They hadn't been reckless. They had been brave. They did the jobs that needed doing while the rest of the galaxy sat in comfortable safety, and the Council had punished them for it. On the 10th day, a new report came in that made everyone in the Council chamber fall silent. The Kraven horde had broken through the outer defenses. 2 colonies destroyed, millions dead. "The Kraven have been contained for 300 years, whispered Counselor Mira. "How did they break free?" Vrex already knew the answer. He pulled up the records. A human military unit had been stationed at the Kraven border. Not to fight, just to watch, to maintain the old warning systems, to repair the ancient barriers that kept the horde locked in their sector. Those humans were gone now, and so were the barriers. "We need to send a fleet," Breen said, but his voice shook. "We don't have a fleet," Thress replied. "The humans provided 60% of our rapid response forces. We never built our own because we didn't think we needed to." The truth settled over the Council like a heavy blanket. For 40,000 years, they had maintained peace, but for the last 200 years, humans had been the ones actually keeping that peace. The Council had just been taking credit for it. Vrex looked at the empty human seat and felt a cold certainty grow in his mind. Humanity hadn't run away. Humanity hadn't destroyed themselves. They had made a choice, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when the Guardians disappeared. Outside the station, stars blinked in the darkness. The Kraven horde moved closer, their ships hungry for conquest. Pirates raided freely. Defense systems failed one by one. The Council that had ruled for 40,000 years sat in their ancient chamber and realized they were utterly unprepared for what was coming. They had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten how to sacrifice. They had forgotten how to be brave. They had let the humans do all of that for them. And now the humans were gone. 3 weeks had passed since humanity vanished. The galaxy was falling apart. Counselor Vrex stood in the archive room, surrounded by floating data screens. Each screen showed another failure, another disaster, another system that humans had maintained now breaking down. The list seemed endless. He pulled up a file on Explorer Tai, a human who had mapped the dangerous sectors near the galactic core. Tay had spent 15 years charting safe routes through radiation storms and gravitational anomalies. His maps allowed thousands of ships to travel safely every day, but Tay's maps required constant updates. Space changed. New hazards appeared. Old routes became dangerous. Tay had been updating his maps every single week. The last update was 23 days old. Yesterday, a colony transport ship followed an outdated route and flew straight into a radiation storm. 2,000 colonists died before anyone knew they were in trouble. Vrex closed that file and opened another. Engineer Ari smiled at him from the old photograph. She had maintained the defense grid in Sector 9, a network of automated weapons platforms built by a precursor species millions of years ago. The technology was so ancient that no one understood how it worked anymore. No one except Ari. She had spent 12 years studying the system, learning its patterns, figuring out how to repair it when it broke down. She had written manuals. She had tried to teach others, but the work was hard and dangerous. No one else wanted to learn. Now the defense grid in Sector 9 was failing. 3 platforms had gone dark. 5 more were showing error codes that no one could interpret. Without that grid, the sector was defenseless, and the Creven horde was only 6 light-years away. Vrex heard footsteps behind him. Counselor Thress entered the archive room, her crystalline body dim with exhaustion. "The Malvorian pirates hit another convoy," she said quietly. 4 ships lost. "The merchants are demanding protection." "We don't have any ships to send," Vrex replied. "The human patrols covered 18 sectors. We would need 200 vessels to replace them. We have 20, and they're all responding to other emergencies." Thress made a sound like breaking glass. It was how her species cried. "How did we not see this? How did we not understand?" Vrex pulled up another file. This one showed Wu, a human combat instructor. He had trained the multi-species peacekeeping forces for 20 years. Every species sent their soldiers to learn from him. Wu taught more than fighting techniques. He taught teamwork. He taught courage. He taught how to stay calm in danger. He taught the art of protecting others instead of just surviving. The peacekeeping forces were supposed to respond to the Creven threat. But without Wu's training, the different species couldn't work together. The insectoid soldiers didn't trust the aquatic warriors. The flying species refused to coordinate with the ground troops. Every unit fought according to their own instincts. The Creven horde tore through them like they were made of paper. "I found something," Thress said, moving to one of the screens. "Look at this. It's from the Central Archive, hidden in old administrative files." She displayed a document. It was a list, categorized and detailed, 147 tasks. Each one showed the human who performed it, how long they had been doing it, and what would happen if they stopped. "They knew," Vrex whispered. "The humans knew how much they were doing." "More than that," Thress pointed to the date on the document. "They compiled this list 3 years ago. They sent it to the Council with a simple request. They asked for help. They asked other species to train for these jobs. They said they couldn't keep doing everything alone forever." Vrex felt sick. "What did the Council say?" Thress pulled up the response. It was short and dismissive. "Humanity must learn that membership in the Council requires patience and humility, not constant demands for attention and resources." They had called it a demand. The humans had been begging for help, and the Council thought they were seeking attention. The screens around them continued to flash with new disasters. A plague quarantine was failing because humans had been maintaining the orbital blockade. An ancient weather control system was breaking down because only humans knew how to repair it. A mining operation was collapsing because human engineers had been the only ones brave enough to work in the dangerous depths. Every single day, new problems emerged. Problems that had simple solutions when humans were around. Problems that were now becoming catastrophic. Vrex opened a communication channel to the council chamber. "Emergency meeting, now." Within an hour, all 11 remaining counselors gathered. Their faces showed fear and exhaustion. 40,000 years of peace and prosperity, and it was crumbling in less than a month. "We need to make a decision," Vrex said. "The Creven horde will reach the inner systems in 2 weeks. We don't have the forces to stop them. We don't have the coordination. We don't have the experience. We need to evacuate." "Evacuate?" Breen's voice thundered through the chamber. "We are the Galactic Council! We do not run!" Then what do you suggest? Snapped Counselor Mira. We sent our best fleet to stop the Krevon. They were destroyed in 4 hours. 4 hours! The humans would have found a way to win. We clearly cannot. The humans are gone, Breen said. We must face reality without them. The reality is that we are not ready, Rex replied. He displayed star maps showing the spreading chaos. Look. Pirates control 6 major trade routes. 15 colony worlds are under threat. The defense systems are failing everywhere. And we haven't even talked about the worst part. He pulled up new data that had arrived that morning. Deep space monitoring stations had detected something massive moving in the void beyond the galactic rim, something that made the Krevon horde look small. What is that? Thress asked. I don't know, Rex admitted. But I found something in the old files. 3 months before they disappeared, scientist Una came to us with a warning. She said something was coming. We dismissed her. He played Una's recording again. This time, the council watched in silence. They saw the fear in her eyes. They heard the desperation in her voice. They watched themselves dismiss her without even listening to her full report. We should access the human database, suggested Counselor Mira. They must have left records, research, something that could help us. They tried. The human systems were locked, protected by encryption that even the best council technicians couldn't break. Every human facility, every database, every piece of advanced technology was sealed behind barriers that refused all attempts to access them. Why would they lock us out? Breen demanded. Vrex had a theory, but he didn't share it yet. He spent the rest of the day in the archives, searching through every piece of information about humanity. He read their history. He studied their culture. He tried to understand why they had vanished. He found his answer in an old report written by Ambassador Hana, submitted 6 months before the disappearance. She had written about human philosophy, trying to explain to the council why humans acted the way they did. Humans have a saying, the report stated. No one left behind. It means that you protect everyone in your group, even if it costs you everything, even if they don't appreciate it, even if they turn against you. You protect them because it's right, because someone has to, because if not you, then who? Vrex read the words again and again. He thought about all the dangerous jobs humans had done, all the thankless tasks they had performed, all the times they had risked their lives for species that barely thanked them. And then he thought about the council vote 6 months ago, the vote to restrict humanity, to slow them down, to limit their expansion and their influence. The humans hadn't argued. They hadn't fought. They had simply accepted the decision and started preparing for something else. Vrex finally understood. Humanity hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had gone somewhere to do something impossible, something they couldn't do while the council held them back. But what? And why? His console beeped with another emergency. The Krevon horde had just destroyed another 3 colonies. The death toll was approaching 10 million. Vrex looked at the empty human seat in the council chamber and felt an emotion he hadn't experienced in centuries. Hope. If humanity had left to prepare for something, then maybe they would come back. Maybe they had a plan. Maybe they were still trying to protect everyone, even the council that had restricted them. Or maybe Vrex was just a foolish old alien, hoping for salvation that would never come. Outside, the galaxy continued to break, and in the darkness beyond the rim, something vast continued its approach. The discovery happened on day 43 after humanity's disappearance. A salvage team exploring an abandoned human research station found something unexpected. A small data core, still active, hidden behind a wall panel. The core activated when they touched it, projecting a hologram of a human woman. "My name is Una," the hologram said. "If you're seeing this, then humanity has been gone for at least 40 days. I'm sorry we left, but we had no choice. Let me explain what we found." The salvage team brought the data core to Nexus Prime. Counselor Vrex watched the full recording with the other counselors. What they learned changed everything. Yuna's hologram stood in the center of the chamber, looking tired but determined. 2 years ago, my team detected a signal from beyond the galactic rim. At first, we thought it was just cosmic radiation, but the pattern was too complex, too organized. It was a message. She displayed star charts and data streams that made no sense to anyone watching. It took us 18 months to decode it. The message was from something called the Architects, a species that existed millions of years before any of us. They built most of the ancient technology we still use today. The defense grids, the monitoring stations, the barrier systems, all of it was theirs. Vrex leaned forward. This explained so much. But why had the humans never shared this information? The Architects left a warning, Yuna continued. Every galaxy has guardians, species chosen not by strength or intelligence, but by their ability to protect others, their willingness to sacrifice, their refusal to give up, even when things seem impossible. She paused, and her hologram showed emotion that seemed like sadness. The Architects chose humanity to be your guardians, not because we're stronger than you, not because we're smarter, but because of something they detected in our psychology, something they called the protective instinct. We form bonds with everyone around us. We protect our pack. And for humans, the pack includes everyone. The counselors sat in stunned silence. Humans were chosen to protect the galaxy. But there's a problem, Yuna said. The Architects also warned us about something called the convergence. It's a force from outside our galaxy, a kind of collective consciousness that consumes everything it touches. It moves from galaxy to galaxy, absorbing all life and technology into itself. The hologram showed images that made Rex's blood run cold. Entire star systems going dark, planets stripped of all matter, space itself seeming to fold and collapse. The convergence is coming here, Yuna stated. The Kraven horde you're fighting right now, they're not invaders, they're refugees. They're running from the convergence, just like dozens of other species will be running soon. The real threat is still outside the galaxy, but it's getting closer. She pulled up calculations and predictions. According to the Architect's message, the convergence will reach our galaxy in approximately 1 year. When it does, everything will end, unless the Guardians are ready. Vrex felt his heart sink. 1 year? The galaxy was already falling apart. How could they possibly prepare for something worse in just 1 year? Here's the difficult part. Yuna's hologram looked directly at where the counselors sat, as if she could see them across time. The Architects left behind tools to fight the convergence, weapons, technology, knowledge, but there's a restriction. The Guardians can only access these tools if they're strong enough, if they've evolved beyond their limitations. She displayed an image of a sealed vault, covered in symbols that hurt to look at. We tried to open the Architect's vault. We couldn't. We're not advanced enough. We need to evolve. We need to grow beyond what we are now. But the Council voted to restrict our expansion, to slow us down, to keep us limited. Now Vrex understood. The humans had been trying to advance quickly because they knew time was running out, and the Council had stopped them. We made a choice, Yuna said, and her voice carried both sadness and determination. We can't evolve fast enough while staying in normal space. The laws of physics won't allow it. But there are places where time moves differently. Pocket dimensions. Spaces between spaces. We found one. The hologram showed strange readings and impossible geometry. For every year that passes in our galaxy, 50 years will pass for us in that pocket dimension. We're going there to evolve, to grow, to become strong enough to open the Architect's vault and access the weapons we need. Counselor Breen stood up, his voice shaking. They abandoned us to save themselves. No, Vrex said quietly. Let her finish. We're not abandoning you, Yuna's hologram continued, as if answering Breen directly. We're going ahead to prepare. But here's the truth that the architects made very clear. Guardians alone cannot save a galaxy. Everyone must fight. Everyone must contribute. Everyone must be willing to protect each other. She pulled up more data, showing the 147 tasks that humans had been performing. We were doing too much. We were enabling you to stay comfortable while we handled all the danger. That's not protection. That's dependence. The architects warned against this. A galaxy that depends on guardians instead of fighting alongside them will always fall to the convergence. Rex closed his eyes. The humans hadn't just left to grow stronger. They had left to force the rest of the galaxy to grow stronger too. We left behind automated systems, Una explained. They'll keep working for a while, but not forever. You'll need to learn. You'll need to take risks. You'll need to do the jobs that scare you. Because when we come back, we need you to be ready to fight with us, not hide behind us. The hologram began to flicker. The data core was running out of power. Una had one more thing to say. The architects left one final message. They showed us what happens when galaxies face the convergence. Some survive, most don't. The difference is always the same. Galaxies that survive are those where every species fights together, where they trust each other, where they understand that protecting others is how you protect yourself. She smiled, and it was a sad, hopeful expression. We believe in you. We believe you can do this. We're going to return with the tools you need, but you have to meet us halfway. You have to become the galaxy worth saving, please. We're counting on you. The hologram disappeared. The data core went dark and would never activate again. The council chamber was silent for a long time. Then Counselor Mira spoke. Her voice barely a whisper. They're trying to save us, even after we restricted them. Even after we dismissed their warnings. They're still trying to save us. We don't deserve it, Thress said, and her crystalline body chimed with sorrow. No, Rex agreed. We don't. But that's exactly why they're doing it. Because humans protect everyone, even those who don't deserve protection. He stood up and looked at each counselor in turn. We have work to do. Real work. Dangerous work. We can't wait for the humans to come back and fix everything. We need to learn. We need to become worthy of their sacrifice. Over the next few days, Vrex organized teams to study the abandoned human facilities. They found training manuals left behind by Wu, explaining how to coordinate different species in combat. They found Ari's notes on maintaining the ancient defense systems. They found Ty's methods for mapping dangerous space. Everything was there. The humans had prepared lessons for them, instructions, guidance. They had known the council would struggle, and they had left behind everything needed to learn. But learning was hard. The work was dangerous. 3 technicians died trying to repair a defense platform. A patrol ship was destroyed while attempting to fight pirates. Species argued about who should take the lead in different situations. It would have been easier to give up, to evacuate and hide in isolated systems, to wait for either the humans to return or the convergence to end everything. But Vrex remembered Yuna's words. Become the galaxy worth saving. They had to try. In the deep darkness beyond the galactic rim, the convergence continued its slow approach. And somewhere in a pocket dimension where time flowed like a river, humanity worked desperately to evolve fast enough to face the coming storm. The galaxy trembled, balanced between extinction and salvation. Everything depended on whether the council species could learn what humans had always known. Sometimes protecting others means letting them face danger. Sometimes the greatest act of love is walking away so others can learn to stand on their own. And sometimes the only way to save everyone is to first save yourself. 6 months had passed since humanity vanished. The galaxy was broken. Counselor Vrex walked through the ruins of what used to be the trading hub, Meridian 5. Fires still burned in some sections. Bodies lay scattered in the streets. The Kreven horde had swept through 3 days ago, and the defenders had barely slowed them down. 40% of Council space was now lost, 40% in just 6 months. The Malvorian pirates controlled 5 major trade routes, making commerce almost impossible. 12 colony worlds had been abandoned when their defense systems failed. 4 species had completely withdrawn from the Council, fleeing to isolated corners of the galaxy to hide. Everything was falling apart. Vrex had tried. They had all tried. They studied the human manuals. They attempted to learn the dangerous jobs. They sent ships to patrol the trade routes and soldiers to defend the colonies. But it wasn't enough. It was never enough. 3 species refused to work together, old rivalries surfacing the moment humans were no longer there to mediate. The insectoid soldiers accused the aquatic warriors of cowardice. The flying species blamed everyone else for failures. Every defeat led to more accusations and less cooperation. Vrex found a datapad in the rubble. It still worked, somehow. He activated it and saw it belonged to a human medic named Mira. Her personal journal left behind when humanity disappeared. He read the entries, dated from 2 years before the vanishing. Treated 17 patients today from 7 different species. The Vrexian counselor's nephew was in critical condition. Saved him, but it took 6 hours. He never said thank you. None of them do. But that's okay. We don't do this for thanks. Vrex felt shame burn through him. He remembered his nephew's injury, remembered the human doctors working through the night. He had never thanked them. He had just assumed they were doing their job. Another entry. The Council voted against our expansion proposal again. They say we're too aggressive, too fast, too dangerous. But they don't understand. Time is running out. The signal from beyond the rim is getting stronger. Something terrible is coming. We need to prepare. Why won't they listen? Vrex put down the datapad and sat among the ruins. He had voted against that proposal. He had thought humans were being dramatic, seeing threats that didn't exist. He had been so wrong. A message came through his communicator. Counselor Thress, calling from Nexus Prime. Vrex, you need to come back. We have a situation. He took a transport ship back to the station. The council chamber was in chaos when he arrived. All remaining counselors shouted at each other, their voices creating a horrible noise. Order! Vrex commanded. What happened? Counselor Mira stepped forward, her tentacles trembling. We tried to access the human weapons vault in Sector 12. We followed their instructions exactly. But the vault rejected us. It said we are unworthy. Unworthy? Breen roared. We are the Galactic Council. How dare a human machine judge us? Thress pulled up the vault's message on the main display. The text was simple and devastating. Unity insufficient. Cooperation level below minimum threshold. Sacrifice index inadequate. Access denied. The architects had created these vaults to test the Guardians and their allies. The tests weren't about strength or intelligence. They were about working together, about trusting each other, about being willing to sacrifice for the greater good. The Council species had failed every measure. We can't keep doing this, Counselor Mira said quietly. We've lost too much. Too many colonies. Too many ships. Too many lives. We should evacuate what's left and hide. Wait for the humans to return if they ever do. And if they don't return, Vrex asked, if they failed in their mission? If they're dead? Do we just wait for the convergence to find us and consume us? No one had an answer. Vrex accessed the tactical displays. The situation was even worse than he thought. The Kreven horde had broken into 3 separate fleets, attacking from multiple directions. The defense grids were failing faster now. Food shipments were disrupted, causing starvation on several worlds. And beyond the galactic rim, the massive signature that Yuna had warned about was growing stronger. The convergence was approaching ahead of schedule. They had less than 6 months now. Maybe less. I'm done, Breen announced, standing up from his seat. My people are withdrawing completely. We're taking our ships and our technology and retreating to the outer reaches. Anyone who wants to join us is welcome. 3 other counselors stood up to join him. You'll doom us all, Thress said. If we split apart now, none of us will survive. We're doomed anyway, Breen replied. The humans left us to die. I'm going to save my own people while I still can. He left. The others followed. Just like that, the Galactic Council that had stood for 40,000 years split in half. Vrex sat in his seat and thought about another human file he had found, notes from a negotiator named Sung, documenting peace treaties between species that hated each other. One note stood out, getting species to work together is like teaching children to share. Everyone wants their own way. Everyone thinks they're right. Everyone blames others when things go wrong. The trick is making them understand that they need each other. That alone, they're weak. Together, they're strong. But some lessons can only be learned through pain. Pain. They certainly had enough of that now. The next 3 months were a nightmare. The species that left with Breen set up isolated strongholds in distant systems. The remaining council species tried to hold the line, but every day brought new losses. Vrex found himself studying human culture obsessively, trying to understand what made them different. He watched old recordings of human families, human soldiers, human communities. He read their stories and their history. Humans had a long history of fighting each other, wars, conflicts, betrayals. They weren't naturally peaceful or united, but somehow they had learned to work together when it mattered. They had learned to put aside differences to face common threats. How? What was their secret? He found the answer in a recording from Soldier Han, giving a speech to new peacekeeping recruits from multiple species. You all come from different worlds, Han said in the recording. Different cultures, different biologies. Some of you breathe oxygen, others breathe methane. Some of you see in infrared, others in ultraviolet. You're all different, and that's exactly why you're valuable. The recruits looked confused. Han smiled. Your differences aren't weaknesses. They're strengths. When we face an enemy, they have to deal with dozens of different fighting styles, different strategies, different abilities. They can't predict us because we're not predictable. We're not uniform. We're chaos. Beautiful, coordinated chaos. He walked among the recruits. But here's the key. You have to trust each other. Completely. The aquatic warrior needs to trust that the flying soldier will cover their blind spot. The insectoid fighter needs to trust that the crystalline medic will heal them if they fall. Trust isn't natural. It's built through action and sacrifice. Han stopped and looked directly at the camera. Some of you will die protecting others. That's the truth. That's the cost. But here's what I believe. I believe that a galaxy where everyone protects everyone else is a galaxy worth dying for. The recording ended. Vrex sat in silence, finally understanding. Humans didn't protect others because it was easy. They protected others because it was right. And they had been trying to teach that lesson to everyone else. The Council had failed to learn. They had taken human protection for granted. They had never developed the trust and sacrifice that holding a galaxy together required. Now they were paying the price. Vrex made a decision. He sent a message to all remaining Council species and to Breen's isolated group. The message was simple. The humans will return in approximately 4 months if Yuna's calculations were correct. When they arrive, they will find either a galaxy ready to fight alongside them or a galaxy that has already given up. I know what I choose. What about you? He didn't know if anyone would listen, but he had to try. Because if humans could spend 200 years protecting ungrateful species, the least he could do was spend 4 months trying to unite them. Outside, the Kreven horde continued its advance. The convergence drew closer. And somewhere in a pocket dimension, humanity raced against time to become strong enough to face the impossible. The galaxy trembled on the edge of extinction, and everything depended on whether broken species could learn to trust each other before it was too late. The sensors detected it first. A massive energy signature at the edge of the galaxy, appearing from nowhere. Counselor Vrex was in the emergency command center when the alert came through. His hands shook as he pulled up the readings. Something huge was emerging from a dimensional rift. Multiple somethings. Ships. Thousands of them. "Is it the convergence?" Counselor Thresh asked, her voice tight with fear. Vrex zoomed in on the signatures and felt his heart stop. The ships were broadcasting identification codes. Human codes. "They're back," he whispered. "Humanity is back." The next few hours were chaos as the fleet moved into the galaxy. Vrex watched the scans in awe. These weren't the ships humanity had left with. These vessels were massive, beautiful, and terrifying. They seemed grown rather than built, organic curves mixed with impossible technology. A communication request came through. Vrex accepted it with trembling hands. The hologram that appeared showed a man in his 30s wearing a uniform that seemed to shimmer with its own light. Vrex recognized the face, though it was older and somehow different. Commander Day. "Counselor Vrex," Day said, and his voice carried authority that hadn't been there before. "We need to talk." Within an hour, representatives from the human fleet arrived at Nexus Prime. Day led them, along with scientist Yuna and Captain Hyun. They had all aged, but not 2 years. More like decades. "How long?" Vrex asked when they met in person. 53 years for us," Yuna replied. "We experience time differently in the pocket dimension. We had 53 years to study, to grow, to prepare." She looked around the battered station. "We hoped to find you stronger. We hoped you would have learned, but I see the galaxy is falling apart." Vrex felt shame, but he pushed through it. "We tried, we failed, but we learned something valuable, even if it came too late. We learned why you were so important, not because you were stronger, but because you were willing to sacrifice." Day's expression softened slightly. "Tell me what happened." Vrex explained everything: the disasters, the failures, the species that fled, the council that split, the 40% of space now lost to the Kreven horde. "The Kreven aren't the enemy," Hyun said when Vrex mentioned them. "Yuna was right. They're refugees. The convergence drove them from their home galaxy. They attacked us because they're desperate and scared." "Can they be negotiated with?" Thresh asked. "Yes," Day replied. "We already tried. They refused to talk to us unless we brought representatives from the council species. They don't trust humanity alone. They need to see that the galaxy is united." Vrex understood. Another test. Another lesson. Humanity couldn't save everyone by themselves. Others had to participate. "There's something else," Yuna said. She displayed a hologram showing the massive signature beyond the galactic rim. "The convergence will arrive in 37 days. When it does, every living thing in this galaxy will be consumed unless we stop it." "How do we stop something like that?" Vrex asked. "The architects left behind weapons. We can access them now. We evolved enough to open the vaults." Yuna pulled up specifications for technology that made Vrex's head hurt just looking at it. "But the weapons require operators from multiple species. They're designed to only work through cooperation. No single species can use them alone." Of course, the architects had built everything around the concept of unity. "We have a plan," Day said, "but it requires everyone. The council species, the Kreven, even the groups that split off and tried to hide. Everyone needs to fight together. Can you deliver that?" Vrex thought about the fractured galaxy, the species that no longer trusted each other, the old wounds that had reopened without human mediators. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'll try." Over the next week, Vrex worked harder than he ever had in his 300 years of life. He sent messages to every species. He shared what humanity had accomplished. He explained the plan. Many refused to respond. Breen and his isolationist group stayed silent. 3 other species said they would rather take their chances hiding than risk fighting. But slowly, others began to arrive. Species that remembered human sacrifices, species that had lost people to the chaos and wanted revenge, species that understood they had no other choice. The Creven were the surprise. When Day and Vrex approached them together, the Horde's leader agreed to talk. Her name was unpronounceable in any language Vrex knew, but she spoke through a translator. "We fled the Convergence for 200 years, she said. "We lost everything. Our home galaxy is gone. We thought this galaxy was empty, ready to be claimed. When we arrived and found it occupied, we attacked out of desperation. We are tired of running." "Then stand with us," Day offered. "Fight with us. The Convergence doesn't discriminate. It will consume you just as surely as it will consume us." The Creven leader studied Day for a long moment. "Why do you help? Your council restricted you. They feared you. They treated you poorly." Day smiled. "Because that's what humans do. We protect people, even when they don't deserve it. Even when they push us away. Even when it costs us everything. We protect because someone has to. Because if not us, then who?" The Creven leader made a sound that the translator couldn't interpret. Then she extended a clawed hand. "We will fight with you. Teach us what we need to do." The coalition grew. Not everyone joined, but enough did. Enough to make a difference. Una distributed the architect weapons to different species. Each weapon required multiple operators working in perfect synchronization. A human pilot, a Vrexian navigator, a Creven weapons officer, a crystalline engineer. Every combination forced different species to trust each other completely. Training was intense. Species that had never worked together before had to learn in just a few weeks. There were arguments. There were failures. A few ships crashed during practice runs because the crews couldn't coordinate, but they kept trying. Because they had no choice. Because humans showed them what determination looked like. Vrex found himself assigned to a command ship alongside Day, a Creven warrior, and a crystalline tactician. They had to learn to think together, to predict each other's actions, to become one mind in 4 bodies. It was the hardest thing Vrex had ever done, but slowly, it started to work. 37 days after humanity's return, the Convergence arrived. Vrex watched it approach on the command displays and felt primal fear. It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't a weapon. It was something else entirely. A wave of darkness that consumed everything it touched. Stars went dark. Planets simply stopped existing. Space itself seemed to fold and die. All ships. "This is Commander Day," the human's voice came through every speaker. "Today we face extinction, but we don't face it alone. Every species, every ship, every person in this galaxy stands together. We are not separate species anymore. Today we are one people, one galaxy, one voice saying, 'No more.'" The fleet moved forward. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, coordinated in a way the galaxy had never seen before. The architect weapons powered up, their energy signatures visible even to the naked eye. The battle that followed was impossible to describe. The Convergence tried to consume them, but the architect weapons pushed back, creating barriers of pure energy. Every barrier required perfect cooperation between different species. Any hesitation, any distrust, and the barriers would fail. Ships were lost. Thousands died in the first hour alone, but they held the line. Vrex worked his station alongside Day and the others, coordinating defensive positions. He had to trust the Creven warrior to handle weapons at exactly the right moment. He had to trust the crystalline tactician to manage shields without question. Trust. That was the key. That was what humanity had been trying to teach them all along. Hours passed. The battle continued. The Convergence was vast, but it had a weakness. It consumed galaxies by overwhelming them, by turning species against each other. It had never faced a united galaxy before. Yuna's voice came through the command channel. "We've found its core, a central intelligence coordinating the consumption. If we destroy it, the convergence will fragment and disperse." "What do we need to do?" Day asked. "Every ship with an architect weapon needs to fire simultaneously at these exact coordinates. Perfect synchronization across the entire fleet. Miss by even a second and it won't work." Perfect synchronization. Dozens of species, thousands of ships, all firing as one. It should have been impossible. But they had trained for this. They had learned to trust each other. They had become what humanity had always believed they could be. "All ships," Day commanded, "prepare to fire on my mark. Trust your crewmates, trust your allies, trust each other. We're going to show the convergence what a united galaxy can do." The countdown began. Vrex watched his screens, his hands steady on the controls. The Krevan warrior's claws hovered over the weapons triggers. The crystalline tactician monitored power levels with absolute focus. 3, 2, 1. Mark! The galaxy fired as one. Every architect weapon unleashed its power at the same instant, their beams converging on a single point deep within the convergence. The combined energy was beyond anything the universe had seen in billions of years. The core shattered. The convergence screamed, a sound that existed beyond normal physics, felt in the minds of every living being. Then it fragmented, breaking apart into millions of pieces that dispersed into the void like smoke in the wind. Silence fell across the battlefield. Then cheering erupted from every ship. Species that had never celebrated together before now shouted in joy, their voices mixing across every frequency. They had won. Together. Vrex sat in his chair, exhausted and amazed. They had actually done it. Day put a hand on his shoulder. "You did well, Counselor. All of you did." "We couldn't have done it without you," Vrex replied. "Without humanity showing us the way." "No," Day said firmly. "You did this yourselves. We just gave you the tools. But you found the courage. You learned to trust. You became the galaxy worth saving." In the days that followed, the galaxy began to heal. The Krevan were welcomed as refugees instead of invaders. The species that had fled in isolation returned, ashamed but forgiven. The Council reformed, but with changes. Every species now took turns handling the dangerous jobs. Every species contributed to the protection of all. Humanity took their seat at the Council again, but they weren't alone anymore. They were part of something larger, a true community, a united galaxy. Vrex looked at the Council chamber, seeing representatives from dozens of species working together, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Humanity had disappeared to save the galaxy. But in doing so, they had forced everyone else to save themselves, to grow, to become worthy of survival. And now, together, they would face whatever came next. Not as separate species competing for resources, but as one galaxy, protecting each other the way humanity had always protected them, the way they would now protect each other forever.